In this video, we're going to talk about the perfect intervals. So in the last one, we talked about the second, third, sixth, and seventh, which are never perfect. They can be minor, major, diminished, or augmented. In this video, we're going to talk about the unison, which also can be called a first, the fourth, the fifth, and the octave, can also be called an eighth. So I'm going to form my little chart here. Okay, same way that I did before. P stands for perfect, plus stands for augmented, and the degree symbol stands for diminished. So the unison, I'll write that in here too. The unison, fourth, fifth octave can either be diminished, perfect, or augmented. Now, this is very simple. For a perfect unison, it's exactly the same note. So what's the distance? The distance from C to Z is 0 half steps. Oops, I'll do this in red. And all of these distances are in half steps, 0 half steps. If we go from, say, C to C sharp, we've increased the distance between the notes, which means it's an augmented unison, which technically doesn't exist, okay? Not from a practical sense. Can you notate an augmented unison? Yes, you can write C and C sharp. That would be an augmented unison. But no one would ever hear it that way. You would always hear it as a C and D flat. It would be heard as a minor second. Okay, so it's theoretical. It exists in theory, but it doesn't exist in practice. So the unison here, the augmented second, has 1 half step of distance, which is the same as a minor second. It's enharmonic to a minor second. Now, you cannot decrease 0 half steps by 1 half steps and come up with negative 1 half step, because that doesn't exist. So there is no diminished unison. Okay? If we were to make this C and C flat, for example, we have not decreased the distance, we've increased the distance. This would also be an augmented unison. Okay? Which again is just theoretical, so you should never see this, nor should you ever write this. Okay? By that same token, the octave is always going to be perfect, generally speaking. Now, if we're going to count the half steps for an octave, we could count that. It's going to end up being 12. Can you theoretically have an augmented octave? Yes, theoretically you can. Will anyone ever hear it that way? No. Because if I play this, I'm not going to hear C and C sharp. I'm going to hear C and D flat, or a minor ninth. Okay. By the same token, theoretically, you can decrease 12 half steps and end up with 11 half steps for a theoretical diminished octave. But you'll never hear it as a diminished octave. That's always going to be heard as a major seventh. Okay? So those are theoretical intervals, hence why they are in parentheses. Never write it, and hopefully you'll never see it. If you do, then you should definitely contact the composer and tell them to, anyways, stop writing diminished octaves and such. Okay, let's look at the fourth. C to F is a perfect fourth. Remember, if you go from C to any key above it within an octave, it's always going to be perfect or major. So C to F is a perfect fourth. Half steps are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 half steps. Augmented fourth is going to be 6 half steps. This does exist, by the way. Diminished fourth is going to be 4 half steps. And although rare, this also exists. So C to F, perfect fourth. C to F flat, diminished fourth. C to F sharp, augmented fourth, also known as the tritone. Okay. And the tritone is called a tritone because it's so distant, it almost sounds like there are 3 notes, not just 2. All right, then we look at the fifth. C to G is a perfect fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 half steps here. If we decrease this by a half step, you'll end up with 6 half steps. If you increase it by a half step, you'll end up with 8 half steps. Okay? 6 half steps, by the way, is the same as the augmented fourth. Diminished fifth and the augmented fourth are enharmonic. They are both a tritone. Okay? Because you could spell it C to F sharp. That would be an augmented fourth. You can also spell it C to G flat. That would be a diminished fifth. Okay? So now we've covered this in a few different ways. We could go into more depth, but I'm hoping that this is a clear enough explanation. If you have any questions whatsoever, post in the comment section below, and I will be sure to answer those as soon as I can. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.